This time on Red Rat Video, we're playing Skate Attack, a PS2 skateboarding game that is terrible, but in different ways than the other games have been terrible so far. Let's take a look. Okay, I really stepped in it this time. I picked another really terrible game, and it sucks because this one, when I first played it, first couple minutes, seemed like there might be something there. You know, a game like Skateboard Madness is probably worse, but within a second, you know it's terrible. The graphics are awful, the sound is terrible, or is silent for the first couple of seconds actually in that game. Stuff doesn't work, you know, but this game, it almost feels like there's something there, but it's just way over ambitious and they don't follow through on anything, on any one idea. So, you know how in the Tony Hawk games in the PlayStation 2 era, every year they would add in something new. This year is a open world where you skate around and you talk to people and launch, you know, a challenge that way. Next year you can get off your board. They added in cars. Year after that, they add in different types of vehicles and they're adding in all this stuff. Imagine if Neversoft had tried to do that all at once. If Tony Hawk 3 had all of that stuff, imagine how that game would be. Now, Neversoft might have done an okay job. It would have sucked, but this is a really good developer. This game was developed by a company called Zero Scale, or as I like to call them, Zero Skill, because this game is just not good. And a weird thing happened. So I was playing this game, I was about halfway through my run, and I go to a game store and I find a Wii game called Skate City Heroes, which appears to be the Wii port of this game. From looking at the storyline on the box, it looks like it is the same game, except that this version has support for the balance board. I can't imagine anything I'd rather do less than that. So let's jump into the game. It starts out pretty promising. You have an interesting looking anime world. Having an actual graphical theme and decent graphics is nice because most of these terrible games are just a generic real world type of setting. And aside from this girl looking like a Team Rocket ripoff, it's actually fine. And skating around feels good. Steering around, ollieing onto stuff, doing flip tricks, that stuff feels pretty good. But one weird thing about the controls is that you grind with the R1 button, which is not the end of the world, but they use a triangle to stop in a tail drag, which rarely gets any use. So speaking of grinds, which ones do you have? We got blunt slides, which are actually tail slides, or sometimes nose blunts. If you approach backside, it's actually a nose slide. And then, of course, you've got a nose slide, which is actually a nose grind. Whatever. The flip tricks are just as bad. So kick flips, of course, flip the wrong way. There's a 50-50 chance they'd get it right with zero research, so I'm not surprised. But, you know, your character's kicking, so maybe it's called a kick flip. You know, whatever. They have shove-its, which are okay, although there's no scoop, so the animation looks a little bit weird. And, of course, they spell it in the worst possible way. Just write it out as 2 words. It's really not that hard. Kick indie is, of course, a kickflip indie. It looks pretty good. I don't have a problem with it, except for the fact that there are a million more common tricks that they skipped over to put this one in here. And I can't tell what the impossible is supposed to be. It looks kind of like a front foot impossible, sort of, but not really. And the 180 flip is a Vero heel flip, which is fine. It just isn't named right, and I wish they could have just called it a Vero heel flip. And you'll probably see me doing lots of late heel flips throughout the gameplay, and that's because holding square will have the board just heel flip over and over and over. So if you hit square to do a flip trick and then you hold it a frame too long, you'll do a late heel flip, if you want to call it that. The game has manuals, which are fine. The balancing is really easy in this game, though. And the grabs are generally okay. They spelled lean air wrong, but whatever. The one really weird thing with air tricks, though, is that spins are called thrill seekers. Yeah. Rock and rolls are actually rock fakies, but that's not really the end of the world either. So this game has a special meter. They call it adrenaline in this game. It makes you go faster, and you can crash through certain kinds of barriers and walls and fences and stuff like that. And also, speaking of breaking stuff, you can break your enemies in battles. This is not a new idea. I've played quite a few skating games with bosses now, like Evolution Skateboarding and Yanya Kabbalista. But this one has these robots that you fight. You can hit the grind button and do a dive attack at them. You can juggle attacks together, try to get combos. There are a couple very minor differences between the moves that you can do here, but it's incredibly shallow. And one more thing is health. You have to collect blood drops to keep your health up. So are you seeing the problem yet? There's a lot of stuff going on in this game, but it's all very basic. It's only a couple of tricks for every trick category. There's a couple of moves in the fighting system. There's just very, very little on every level. So it's very, very broad, but incredibly shallow, kind of like my local dating pool. After the tutorial, we get into the story. There's a city with a casino in it. The machines get a virus, and that virus becomes a sentient robot who captures your fellow Shredder. So you hurry up, you do a boneless kickflip indie to go save him, but the virus has some challenges for you first, and that's the background of the game. So you'll do challenges for the game referees and challenges for the resistance movement as well. But what are these challenges like? Well, it's like having your fingernails torn off and your bleeding fingers shoved into boiling salt water. Okay, a lot of the challenges aren't that bad by design, but they're stretched out to a completely ridiculous degree and they just take way too long. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But a lot of them are just collecting things. Like this first one is to grab some dragonflies. There are tutorials where a character who looks just like you with different colored hair shows up to show you some new moves. And again, this is just extending the game and adding more and more systems. You'll learn how to do a wall ride and all kinds of other stuff like that. One of the other challenge types that's very common is just going somewhere. So this is like a follow me here type of challenge, or go meet me at that location, that type of thing. And these are one of the worst parts of the game. Traveling around in this world is torture. It's designed to slow you down and be as annoying as possible. There are cars that will run into every few seconds. There are signs, trash cans, all kinds of stuff that you can run into. Later, there are laser turrets that'll track you and shoot you everywhere you go. There are breakable walls that get in your way that respawn a few seconds after you break through them, and this gets worse and worse later on in the game, and it's honestly the main reason I quit playing it. Another challenge type is the battles. You get jumped by robots that you have to kill. In this one, you kill them to collect coins that do something. Do you spend these on... I really don't know, whatever. This one is the worst battle example. You have to crush all these virats, which are instantly renamed Ranger Rats the second you get to them. So what are you doing? Do you kill them all? No, what you're actually trying to do is get a high score through the process of killing them, like building your combo up with attacks. But the problem is that it's basically impossible to get a combo going and actually land it because you keep getting attacked from your blind side. Oh, come on! So can you ignore them, just skate around and get your combo going doing nothing but tricks? Maybe, but then the rangers start to add up and you're more likely to get shot. So my technique was to try to get a multiplier going and then hurry up and do some tricks and land it before I get killed. Okay, I've got 45,000 points, I just need 50, got a few seconds left. I'm gonna try to squeeze in some extra tricks to be safe, and alright, got 63,000. So wait, did I win? No, this isn't Tony Hawk where you can keep a combo going after the timer ends. As soon as the timer is over, it's done. So you gotta try again. And finally, I got lucky. This took me 12 minutes, which doesn't sound that bad. Spending 12 minutes in a hot tub wouldn't be that bad either, unless your head had to be underwater, then it feels like the rest of your life. And that's what this challenge is like. It's like trying to scream, but only having lungs full of chlorine. Wait, did I say that was the worst battle challenge? Because that's debatable. There's also boss fights. In this one, there's a big UFO that I'm trying to kill, but the only way to attack it is to kill all of the robots in an area and then wait for the weak spot to pop up and then try to find the right angle to attack it. But it's not that easy. Hitting it from this angle seems simple, but if you grind the wrong line, you're screwed. It'll drop more enemies and you have to restart that wave. So look, I can't grind the ledge here, I have to grind right next to it. And it took me quite a bit of time to actually get that hit in. Thankfully, there's only 3 different spots you have to hit, so you get to do this all day. Oh, come on. You know, the controls really aren't that bad, but the level of precision that you need is just way too much for this game to handle. You'll end up going the wrong way or missing it at least a few times. And finally, so the ship moves over and now I attack it over here. With all the barriers and enemies, it's not clear exactly what I need to do. I'm happy there's not a timer on this. And guess what? These barriers will grow back after a few seconds, so you can't plan ahead to try to clear things out so it'll be easier later. This third time, the ship is over a quarter pipe, but there's absolutely no way you can get the air you need to hit it from the quarter pipe, and hitting it from the side over here doesn't seem possible. Oh, sorry, I'm out of time. Gotta re-kill these robots. The most shallow, boring fighting system there is. Okay, so how do you actually kill the boss here? You grind up the rail and you jump over. And I'm actually shocked here. I missed the actual weak spot by some miracle. The game gave me a pass and it counted. On paper, the way this battle goes is fine. It's just that it was not fun in any way at all. But back to the different kinds of challenges, there are lots of them where you have to collect stuff. Like here, I have to wall ride a bunch of posters, and it's not that bad, but it's hard to figure out where you're going a lot of the times. In this case, I have to find a poster behind this barrier, and I didn't realize it was behind there until I didn't have enough time, because you have to build up your adrenaline meter so that you can break it down. Without knowing that, I wasn't prepped for that by actually doing tricks and keeping my meter going, so I had to start over and do it again. It seems minor, but it's just a huge waste of time. A little later in the game, I had to hack these ATMs, which means picking up a code and then standing in front of an ATM for a few seconds, and most of them will have some of these enemies that you have to fight. So what's so bad about that? Well, there are 6 of them, and you have to do them all on one timer. So toward the end of this challenge, one of the codes is in this weird place that's hard to get to. How exactly do I transfer up there? Can I switch over to grind across that wire? I had to figure that out, but I couldn't figure it out on time, and I ran out of time, which means I had to start over and redo 4 other ATMs to get another attempt at it. Maybe you'll find everything first try, but more likely you'll just have to memorize the route and retry it a few times. Oh, here's a rare challenge that's actually skateboard related. Do manuals and grinds to keep the temperature from overheating. Why do these tricks make the temperature go up? Mind your business, that's why. But still, it's actually skateboarding in a skateboarding game, so it's better than most. And there's also high score events every now and then. These are easy, but they're skateboarding, so that's a breath of fresh air in this game. This one is doing a 50-50 to a rocket grab, and I really do like these challenges, but they only take 1 or 2 tries, and so they represent a very small amount of your playtime in this game. There are also combo challenges once in a while, but instead of collecting combo letters like in Tony Hawk, you're collecting the virus's credit cards, I guess. But just like in every other game that does this, it's not obvious where to go the first time, so you have to experiment and try to practice and memorize the layout. It's really not that bad though. And another thing that I don't actually hate is the map. You have a 3D model of the world that you're in and you can move that around and look. That's okay. The level shouldn't have been designed to be so hard to get around so that you would need such a good map, but that's not the map's fault. And here's where the game gets incredibly terrible though. Only about an hour into the game you get a new power, where you can slow down time and jump to different vehicles, like riding around on cars to get around. It's not good. You get caught in the level geometry a lot, and more importantly, it's just not fun. The control is terrible. It's all inverted, so aiming your crosshairs is awkward and gross. The camera's flying one way, you're trying to aim another way, half of your jumps are completely blind. And this mechanic becomes very important later in the game. There are also side missions though, if you really want to torture yourself. This is doing random stuff around the level, like destroying cameras, collecting little objects. Like there's a lot of these collectibles that are just sitting around, but some of them are hidden behind destructible walls, like this one that I found completely on accident. I did not take the time to get anywhere near all of these. Oh, hey look, I unlocked a special trick. So what's it gonna be, like a dark slide or something? Oh, a hand plant? Just like every other skateboarding game, lip tricks are basically a waste of time, like my life so far. But eventually the game introduces the drones, and this is where the game becomes totally unplayable. Now instead of jumping onto cars, you're jumping onto drones which immediately start flying in the direction they're facing, and you have to steer them. You can steer them left, right, up, and down, but it feels horrible in a way that I can't really explain. If you hit a direction, you don't immediately turn. It feels like it has to build up some momentum to swing over to the side. You can't just stop turning either, you have to fight it back until it stops again. But it feels so much worse than that. It's impossible. The first challenge is just crashing into this van, and if you can't tell, I'm having a brutally difficult time. There's also speed. If you go uphill too much, it stalls out, so that's something else to try to balance as you fight the steering. And unfortunately, the game loves these drones. So what does the game do with these drones that you can just barely control? Oh, well, the obvious, of course. They make you very carefully fly them through rings. You know, one thing that's actually decent about this game is that it doesn't rip off other good skateboarding games. But what they do instead is they try to rip off other games from different genres, like Superman 64, one of the worst games ever made. Fantastic. This is seriously torture. They don't even start you on a drone. You have to find one, which may or may not be in the beginning, may or may not be pointing in the right direction, and the controls are inverted and unchangeable, so they never got to a point where it felt natural for me. Okay, almost got it. I just got to crash into... Oh, come on. Somebody murder me. Okay, I've got the drone. I just got to get back to him before I... Eventually, I got it. This one challenge wasn't the end of the world, but it really, really sucked. As long as we don't have to do that again, I think I'll be okay. Oh wait, did you say do that exclusively for every event from now on? Okay, it's not quite every single event from now on, but they give you another challenge, which is basically the same thing. You have to lock onto this bus and fly around with it. You have to steer to try to collect speed boosts and not run into too much stuff. So it's not a drone, technically, but it does control exactly the same. Enjoy. Wait, what are these speed boosts? It says that they're gas tanks, but they look like bleach. So I'm collecting bleach and blood? I'm gonna be injecting some bleach into my blood if I don't get through this challenge. But these gas cans / bleach bottles have an apple on them? I don't know. I bet they just stole this 3D asset from some other game or something because it doesn't make any sense. After a lot of agonizing attempts, I finally got through it. I was very near quitting the game at this point, and I actually did. I didn't play the game again for 4 months after finishing this challenge. But eventually I figured that my suffering would go to waste if I didn't at least make a video out of it. So I finally got back into the game, and guess what kind of challenge was there waiting for me? More drones. There's actually another type of drone which doesn't move at all. You just jump on it, aim it, and you can launch it at stuff. These are a lot easier to deal with than the challenges where you crash into cars. The problem is the timer. Since you just stand on it and wait for your target to come around, you waste lots and lots of time. And guess what? Just like the ATMs, they make you do a bunch of them in a row, and it's not forgiving whatsoever. That was just cruel. I desperately needed to get that one, and I couldn't even get a little splash zone on it. Just like aiming the other drones, this has momentum, and it's much harder to aim than you might think. The first time you do this, you have to hit 5 random cars, and that's torture. But the second time, you have to hit 5 specific cars, which also meant sitting in place and waiting for them to drive back around to your side of the level when you miss. And I missed about 98% of the time. Instead of skate attack, this game should be called drone attack. I'd rather watch a drone attack on video approaching my own house than play this game any longer. And so this is where I just started to straight up cheat and use save states. I'm playing this game on an emulator on my computer. I have a PS2, which I bought for Yanya Kabbalista, but a Windows update broke my capture card, so it's not really an option anymore. But this is for the best anyway, because this was just brutal. So I would make a tiny bit of progress, then I would just immediately save. But even so, this was nearly impossible. Believe it or not though, this challenge is not actually what made me give up. It was actually a very simple and classic skateboarding game challenge, scaring birds off of power lines, or rails, or whatever. Of course, these birds are robot spies, but that's kind of beside the point. So what's so bad about this challenge? In theory, nothing. It's not particularly fun to try to figure out what angle to go to hit those birds while you're being timed, like this one where you have to hit the gap from the side. But being on a timer means that it's not about discovering those right angles. It's not about speed and reflexes. It's just about experimenting, figuring out your path, and hitting retry over and over until you can do it flawlessly. This type of challenge can work in another game. But this one is actively trying to make this as miserable as possible. As you're looking around, trying to figure out what links up to what, you're getting hit by cars constantly. You're getting shot with lasers. Whose idea was it to put these lasers in a game? It's so infuriating. Well, guess what? There is a way to destroy these turrets, which is by crashing a drone into them. Okay, that's it. I can't play any more of this game. It's just really tedious. It's work. It feels like a chore. You know, like my job isn't that bad, but some of the days I've got to do stuff that's just really drags you down, really tedious, really boring, frustrating. And this is worse in every category. This is like the worst assignment I could get at work, except this is supposed to be a video game that I'm playing for fun. So I'm just going to call it there. And you know, it's very tragic that this game was so bad because it didn't have to be. The skating engine really, it's basic, but it's really not that bad. If they made a skate park that had ramps in it and stuff without all the cars and lasers and drones and all that, and they took out all the extra systems that they didn't need, and they added a lot more tricks, they doubled it or septupled it or something like that, this game could have been a decent skateboarding game. But they didn't do that. They tried to do something new and unique and cool, and they get some points for that, but the execution on it is just terrible. So that's it for this game. I know it has some kind of fan base online. Maybe if you get farther into it, you get used to it. It might be okay, but I think you would have had to play it at the time. Nowadays, trying to go back and play something that's this clunky is really tough. But shouldn't have expected too much because this game came out in 2007, I believe, on the PlayStation 2. PlayStation 3 was out already. So you kind of knew that it was a budget title going into it. But yeah. That's it for this one. I'm going to try to find some more games. I've been looking around and it seems like slim pickings on stuff that I haven't gotten into other than mobile or tablet type of stuff. That is probably going to be the worst of all. So stay tuned for that, I guess. We'll see if I can build up the courage to dive into that cesspool. But until next time, tap my logo on the center of the screen so you can subscribe so you don't miss the future misery that I'll put myself through. And you can watch more videos that are here on the sidebar. Until then, thanks for watching.